Well, Dragonfolk, we have a surprise ban that just occurred in Standard and Modern. Stay tuned to see what has been banned and how it will affect its own meta. Welcome on in, Dragonfolk. I hope you're all having a fantastic day. I know I am. And I had been sitting at work and got the tweet that the ban had gone through, or at least a ban of some sort. I was expecting many cards to be hit during this ban, but it turns out there's only two. I'm going to go over the one that I care the least about, being in Modern, because frankly, I don't play any Modern at all. I do know, though, that according to the article that had gone over the ban, which I will leave in the comments down below, 4-color Omnath has been a pretty high-ranking deck in Modern for some time now. And the addition of Yorian's Sky Nomad, which is a companion creature, which, of course, we went over in our Korea opening video. You can go over there and check out what the companions are all about. Apparently, a lot of people didn't like companions. They think it causes a lot of discourse in a deck creation, and there's a lot of problems with them being properly used and abused almost in certain contexts. So a lot of the times these companion creatures end up getting a ban somewhere, right? You saw Luris getting a ban, you saw Lutri getting a ban, and now we are seeing Yorian Sky Nomad getting a ban. Obviously, with this being the case in Modern, there were several reasons why they decided to ban it. First and foremost, they just felt the companion issue was going to be too much, right? Omnath wasn't the issue. It was specifically the fact that Yorian allowed you to have 20 more cards in your deck, and that allowed for kind of a more indifferent playstyle for Modern. Also, according to the article, it was an issue with shuffling, that there was a dexterity issue, that they didn't feel it was right to have an oversized deck, even though there's never really been a deck limit on cards, and commander decks are 100 cards and people shuffle those totally fine. But I understand where they're coming from, I guess, on that front. But 4-color Omnath has been pretty huge, and you use Yorian in that, and they just kind of were looking over and go, how can we bump down the threat of 4-color Omnath? And go, well, let me just ban Yorian. It seems like it's something that they've been planning to do for a long time, according to their article. So that's what they did. They went ahead and banned it. So it's only been banned in Modern. I'm not too sure what other formats it's been banned in. But with this addition, that means that there's going to be a slight change to Modern, although I personally would not know how 4-color Omnath is going to change itself. Obviously, you have landfall triggers and such is probably the whole deal behind it. But I'm sure they'll find some way to go around it. There will be some new meta. Maybe Jingatha will be the new thing to do in Modern. Who knows, right? We'll wait till they ban every single companion creature available, and then we'll kind of decide where the meta goes from there. Because obviously, companions are doing a lot of work in Modern. But on to the next ban, which is probably the most surprising, but also least surprising in regards to this. There was a ban in Standard that is going to be taking place. It is taking place, I believe, in 3 days. The 13th, I want to say, is when the ban will go into effect all throughout. And the ban in Standard is actually the Meathook Massacre. So obviously, the Meathook Massacre, right? I'll put it up here on the screen. Everybody knows it. It's one of the most expensive cards from Innistrad Midnight Hunt. It's a very powerful enchantment, and it's a board wipe. It's a persistent, gain, lose health mechanic on there. It gets around indestructible. It gets around a whole bunch of stuff, right? It's just so incredibly powerful for what it's worth. And for it to only cost 2 black and X, you are wiping boards like nobody's business left and right. But is it the card that needed to be banned? Right? I'm not too sure. The whole reason they banned it is because mono black is dominating Standard right now. And most decks are, of course, in mono black running the best black enchantment to date, at least for the general board wipe of a standard. And of course, people are going to run it, but Wizards could not figure out what one card was causing an issue. So instead of doing more, deep diving into formats and trying to really figure out what needed the ban overall, they instead went, well, the Meathook Massacre came from Innistrad Midnight Hunt, which is the first set, and it's already been in standard for about a year. So let's just get rid of that and see what happens. So they had no real basis other than Mono Black is really, really strong right now. What could we take away from it? And it looks like they had taken away the board wipe and also the persistent, opponent creature dies, you gain a life. One of your creature dies, your opponent loses a life. So that does, in fact, kind of like remove a lot in regards to Mono Black. But if I'm going to be honest, that card can be replaced. If you're looking for a board wipe, you can look at a couple places. You can look at Path of Peril. Path of Peril is pretty straightforward. It's got a cleave cost, so it's not like super amazing, but it is just kind of good with destroying creatures with mana value 2 or less. And then, of course, you also have Drag to the Bottom. Now, Drag to the Bottom is a little harder to pull off because in a mono black deck, you don't exactly have the opportunity for Domain to go off. But let's be honest, if you just ran a Triome or something instead of a tap land, you could easily make that work and get 3 for Domain, which isn't too terrible, to be entirely honest. But of course, I think both Path of Peril and Drag to the Bottom are going to see more play in Zur the Enchanter. Zur decks are definitely powerful. Enchantment Zur is kind of sweeping the board as far as control right now. And I would see that probably getting a lot more play with Meathook Massacre no longer existing, which is funny, though, because it is one of the cards you would run in Zur because it is an enchantment and it is in black. But regardless, I don't think Mono Black is even going to be touched because of this ban, which is kind of funny considering they were like, this is going to be the card. Is it an important card for black? Yes, absolutely. But have you seen Invoke Despair? What in the world? Like, that should have been the card. That should have been the card that you banned. Not Meathook Massacre. Meathook Massacre, I have seen more Invoke Despairs than I have Meathook Massacres in my time on Arena recently, since the rotation. Meathook comes out every now and again, but Invoke Despair, absolutely crazy. The only thing that removing Meathook Massacre has done is it has allowed a entry point for token generating decks to pretty much not be so scared going against Mono Black. Although you still have to worry about things like, Farewell in white, or by invitation only in white. You also have Vanquish the Horde in white. There's a lot of removal there. And of course, with Path of Peril and Drag to the Bottom still available in black, they are a little bit more limited to what they can destroy, but they're still a very viable deck choice. And if you're really trying to remove that, right, I'm sure there's a card that you can put into your deck, maybe a Defiler of Flesh or something you can put into your deck that would kind of benefit you more throughout there. But of course, you still have Shieldred, you still have Liliana, you still have Evolved Sleeper, you still have Tenacious Underdog, and you still have Invoke Despair. And all of those things together are going to probably win you the game pretty dang early, if I must say. You also still run a ton of discard stuff. So unless you're going against somebody like Golgari or some kind of Reanimator deck, you can just discard your opponent's hand into Oblivion, and you don't have to care about a thing. So the removal of Meathook Massacre is definitely going to be something that is going to see some decks be a little bit slower and not have such a huge impact when somebody drops a Meathook Massacre. But I do wonder how well token decks are going to be after this ban. I don't think they're going to see a lot of difference. I think more people are going to try and play them. But of course, you're going to run into the other counterparts of board wipes. And at that point, you're going to get mad over something there too. So hopefully this ban hasn't gotten you up in a tizzy. There is talk that I guess, and I'm not too sure on if this is the matter, if you're on Arena and you crafted the Meathook Massacre, if you crafted 4 of them or something, and when this ban goes through, I guess you're supposed to get 4 mythic wildcards. I don't think that will be the case, considering this is not banned in Pioneer, or in Explorer, I should say, and it's not banned in Historic. So I don't see why they would give you free wildcards because of it. But otherwise, hopefully you can adapt to the change of this one card being banned. I don't know. Maybe play a different color. Maybe try something new other than mono black. You know, like maybe there's other color combinations that work for you. It's all about experimenting, right? You got to change with the times. Eventually, the entirety of Innistrad Midnight Hunt and Crimson Vow and Kamigawa and Streets of New Capenna won't even be in Standard. Of course, that's not until literally next year, but at least you don't have to deal with Meathook Massacre for another year. So thank you all so much for watching. I do really appreciate your support. Please let me know in the comments down below what you guys feel about these bans. Let me know if you're a modern player. I want to know how much this Yorion ban really affects you. We also didn't see any kind of change in Pioneer, Legacy, or Vintage. It seems that everybody's kind of okay in that regard, although there are quite a lot of issues with each meta, but I don't think it's enough for Wizards to want to change something. So let me know in the comments down below what you think about these bans. Let me know if you think that they are justified or if they're just trying to play favorites. And while you're down there leaving that comment, make sure to like the video and subscribe to the channel as well if you have not already. And I will see you all very soon. Nerd out.